I couldn't believe what I was hearing when my phone rang that Wednesday afternoon. I was just finishing my math homework when Sarah's name flashed across my screen. My sister rarely called me these days since she'd moved out for college, so I felt a little flutter of excitement as I answered. "Hey, Sarah. What's up?" I said, tucking my pencil behind my ear. There was a pause on the other end. "Emma, we need to talk about Grandma's money," Sarah said, her voice oddly flat. My stomach did a weird flip. "What about it?" I asked, already feeling defensive. Grandma had passed away 3 months ago, leaving me money specifically for my college fund. It had been such a surprise to everyone. "I need half of it," Sarah said, like she was asking to borrow a sweater. "My tuition is due next week, and my landlord just raised my rent. Mom and Dad can't help this time." I gripped my phone tighter. "But Grandma left that money specifically for my education. It was in her will and everything." "Oh, come on," Sarah huffed. "That's just an excuse. You're not even in college yet. I need it now." "I'm going next year," I said quietly. "And Mr. Harris said the money is supposed to stay in the trust until—" "Mr. Harris?" Sarah cut me off. "You mean Grandma's boring lawyer? Emma, this is family we're talking about. Family helps family. You can't seriously be this selfish." That word, selfish, stung like a slap. "I'm not being selfish," I said, my voice getting shaky. "Grandma wanted—" "I don't care what Grandma wanted," Sarah shouted so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "She's gone, and I'm still here dealing with real problems. You're sitting in your comfortable bedroom while I might get kicked out of my apartment." I blinked back tears. This wasn't the sister I remembered. "Sarah, too. Don't think I can. The money is legally supposed to." "Legally?" She practically spat the word. "Listen to yourself. Playing by the rules while your own sister struggles? Mom was right about you." My heart dropped. "What did Mom say about me?" "That you've always been the spoiled one," Sarah said. "Always getting what you want. Well, guess what? It's time to grow up and help your family. I need that money. And I need it by Monday." I felt my face getting hot. "I can't just give it to you. It doesn't work that way. Mr. Harris set it up so it pays for college directly. I don't even have access to it myself." "Then figure it out," Sarah snapped. "Call the lawyer. Make something up. I don't care how you do it." "Sarah, please understand." "No, you understand," she cut in. "If you don't help me, you're going to regret it. This isn't just about money anymore." My hand was trembling now. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm telling you how it's going to be," Sarah said coldly. "Half the money by Monday, or you'll see exactly what happens when you turn your back on family." Before I could respond, she hung up. I sat there stunned, the phone still pressed to my ear. My sister had just threatened me over Grandma's inheritance. The money Grandma had carefully set aside for my education because she wanted me to go to a good school without debt. I'd been so touched when Miss Harris explained it to me, how Grandma had been saving for years just for this. Now I had a horrible knot in my stomach. What did Sarah mean I would regret it? And what did Mom have to do with all this? I flopped back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. My homework completely forgotten. I'd have to tell my parents. Maybe Dad would understand. He'd always been the more reasonable one. But if Mom was already talking to Sarah about me being spoiled, what chance did I have? I closed my eyes, wishing Grandma was still here. She would know what to do. She always did. Dinner that night was quiet. I pushed meatloaf around my plate while trying to work up the courage to mention Sarah's call. Mom kept giving me strange looks. "You're awfully quiet tonight, Emma," she finally said. "Something on your mind?" I took a deep breath. "Sarah called me today." Dad looked up from his plate. "Oh? How is she doing?" I hesitated, feeling the words stick in my throat. "She wants half of Grandma's inheritance money." Mum's fork clattered against her plate. "And? What did you tell her?" The way she asked made me pause. It wasn't, "What does Sarah want the money for?" Or, "Why would she ask you that?" It was like Mum already knew. "I told her I couldn't," I said carefully. "Grandma left it specifically for my education. It's in a trust and everything." Mum's face hardened. "I see. So your sister needs help, and you're hiding behind legal paperwork." My jaw dropped. Hiding? Mom, I'm not hiding. That's literally what Grandma wanted. Your grandmother, Mom said, emphasizing each word, would want you to help family in need. Sarah has bills to pay. She can't focus on her studies if she's worried about making rent. Dad cleared his throat. Jane, now hold on a minute. No, Tom. Mom cut him off. Emma needs to understand that family comes first. Always. Sarah told me about her situation this morning. So Mom had known all along. That's why she'd been giving me those looks. You knew Sarah was going to call me? I asked. Mom crossed her arms. Of course I knew. I'm the one who suggested it. I felt like I couldn't breathe. You told her to demand half my college money? Don't be so dramatic, Emma. Mom sighed. It's not your money. It's family money that your grandmother mistakenly thought should only go to you. Jane, Dad said, his voice firmer now. That's not fair. Margaret clearly specified. Oh, please. Mom rolled her eyes. My mother always played favorites. She just found one last way to do it from the grave. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Grandma had never played favorites. She'd been kind and fair to everyone. She didn't play favorites, I said, my voice small but determined. She left different things to different people. Sarah got her jewelry collection, remember? The pearls and the diamonds she always wanted. Trinket, Mom waved dismissively. Compared to $50,000 for college? Please. $50,000. I hadn't even known the exact amount until now. No wonder Sarah was so determined. Emma, Dad said gently, maybe you could spare some for your sister. Not half, but maybe enough to help with her rent situation. I looked at Dad, feeling betrayed. He was supposed to be on my side. You too? I'm just trying to find a middle ground, he said, avoiding my eyes. There is no middle ground, Mom said firmly. Sarah needs help, and Emma has the means to provide it. That's all there is to it. But Grandma's wishes, I started. Your grandmother's wishes don't override your sister's needs, Mom snapped. This isn't about what a dead woman wanted. It's about helping the family right now. Tears welled up in my eyes. Grandma wanted me to go to college without worrying about money. That was important to her. And it's important to me that both my daughters get to go to college. Mom said, Sarah could lose everything if she can't pay her bills. Is that what you want? For your sister to drop out while you hoard money for a future that's years away? I'm not hoarding anything, I cried. I don't even have access to it. Mr. Harris explained that it stays in the trust until... Then call Mr. Harris, Mom interrupted. Tell him there's been a change of plans. I'm sure he can arrange something. I shook my head. I don't think it works that way. There were specific instructions. Instructions can be changed, Mom insisted. Where there's a will, there's a way. That's literally the problem, I said. Grandma's will says the money is for my education. Mom slammed her hand on the table, making me jump. Enough. I've heard enough excuses. You will call Mr. Harris tomorrow and arrange to help your sister. End of discussion. She stood up so quickly her chair screeched against the floor. Without another word, she stormed out of the dining room. Dad sighed, looking tired. Emma, try to understand. Your mother just wants what's best for both of you. How is taking away my college fund what's best for me? I asked, my voice breaking. No one's taking it all away, Dad said weakly. Just sharing it. That's not what Grandma wanted. Sometimes, what people want, and what needs to happen, are different things, he said, not meeting my eyes. Just think about it, okay? For family peace. He got up and followed after Mom, leaving me alone at the table with my cold meatloaf and a feeling like my world was crumbling around me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Sarah's threat and Mom's anger. I'd always known Mom could be intense, but I'd never seen her so dismissive of Grandma's wishes before. It was like she was a completely different person when money was involved. I rolled over, staring at the photo of Grandma and me on my nightstand. We'd taken it last Christmas, her arm around my shoulder as we both wore silly paper crowns from the crackers. Dad insisted on having every year. She'd slipped an envelope into my hand that day, whispering that it was a little something for later. Inside had been a card with a note telling me how proud she was that I was working so hard in school, and how she knew I'd do amazing things in college. Dreams need wings and runway, she'd written. I hadn't understood what she meant then, but now I did. The money was my runway, and my own family wanted to take it away. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through my blinds. I heard voices downstairs, sangry, hushed voices. Mom was on the phone. Curious and worried, I crept down the stairs, staying out of sight but close enough to hear. Yes, that's right, Mom was saying, her voice tense. My younger daughter is basically stealing family money, refusing to help her sister in need. I froze on the stairs. Who was she talking to? I understand it's technically in her name, but she's a minor. She shouldn't have control over such a large sum. Yes, my mother left it to her, but clearly there was a misunderstanding. My mother would never want one grandchild to suffer, while the other has money sitting unused. My heart pounded so hard I was sure Mom could hear it. This was bad, really bad, but nothing prepared me for what I heard next. Yes, officer, that's correct. I'd like to report this situation. I know it might seem unusual, but surely there's something you can do. You will? Thank you. We're at 1435 Maple Street. Officer? Was my mom calling the police on me? My own mother? I must have made a sound, because Mom suddenly went quiet. I have to go. Thank you for your help. We'll expect you shortly. I scrambled back up a few steps as Mom came into the hallway. She looked up, catching me on the stairs. Were you eavesdropping? She demanded. Were you calling the police on me? I shot back, my voice shaking. Mom crossed her arms. I'm doing what's necessary since you refuse to be reasonable. Maybe having an authority figure explain things will help you understand the seriousness of the situation. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You called the police because I won't give Sarah my college money, the money Grandma legally left to me. I called because we have a family dispute that needs resolving, Mom said coldly. Go get dressed, they'll be here soon. Too shocked to argue, I went back to my room and threw on jeans and a sweater. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely button my pants. This couldn't be happening. People didn't call the police on their own children over inheritance money, did they? I was sitting on my bed, trying to calm my breathing, when the doorbell rang. Moments later, Dad called up the stairs. Emma, come down here, please. Taking a deep breath, I headed downstairs to find two police officers standing in our living room. One was a tall man with a serious expression, the other, a younger woman with kind eyes. Mom was already talking rapidly, gesturing with her hands. Dad stood off to the side, looking uncomfortable. And there, sitting on the couch with red-rimmed eyes, was Sarah. She must have driven over this morning. There she is, Mom said when she saw me. Emma, these officers are here to help us resolve our situation. The male officer looked at me, then back at Mom. Mom, just to clarify, you called us about a 17-year-old who won't share inheritance money. She's withholding family assets, Mom insisted. Her sister needs that money for essential expenses. The female officer stepped forward. Hi, Emma. I'm Officer Chen. Mind if we talk for a minute? I nodded, my mouth dry. Your grandmother left you money in her will, is that right? She asked gently. Yes, I said, finding my voice. For my college education. It's in a trust with Mr. Harishis, the executor. Officer Chen nodded. And you can't access this money directly? No. It pays directly to whatever college I attend. That's how Grandma set it up. Sarah made a scoffing sound. That's convenient. Meanwhile, I'm about to get evicted. The male officer held up his hand. Miss, please let us sort this out. Mom stepped forward. Officers, surely there's something you can do. My daughter is hiding assets that should be helping the whole family. Mrs. The male officer checked his notepad. Williams, inheritance matters are civil issues, not criminal ones. If you have a dispute about the terms of your mother's will, you need to take that to probate court. But she's a minor, Mom insisted. She can't make these kinds of financial decisions. While they argued, a memory suddenly sparked in my mind. Grandma sitting with me after the will reading, squeezing my hand. If there's ever any trouble with the inheritance, any at all, she'd said, you call Mr. Harris right away, day or night. Promise me. At the time, I thought she was being dramatic. Now I understood. Excuse me, I said quietly. I need to use the bathroom. No one paid much attention as I slipped out of the living room. Instead of heading to the bathroom, I went to the kitchen and grabbed my phone from where I'd left it charging. With shaking fingers, I found Mr. Harris's number and pressed call. He answered on the second ring. Emma? Is everything all right? No, I whispered, glancing over my shoulder to make sure no one had followed me. My mom and sister are trying to take Grandma's money. Mom even called the police. They're here right now. There was a moment of silence. Then Mr. Harris's voice came back, sharp and clear. The police are at your house? Yes, I said, fighting back tears. Mom keeps saying I'm hiding family assets. Sarah needs money for rent and tuition, and they think I should give her half of what Grandma left me. I see, Mr. Harris said, and I could hear papers rustling in the background. Are your parents aware of the specific terms of your grandmother's trust? I tried to explain, but they won't listen. Mom keeps saying Grandma would want me to help Sarah, but I know that's not true. Grandma specifically said the money was for my education. You're absolutely right, Emma, Mr. Harris said firmly. And there's more to this situation than your mother realizes. Sit tight. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Thank you, I whispered, relief washing over me. Remember what your grandmother always said? Mr. Harris asked. I smiled despite everything. Stand your ground like an oak tree. Exactly, Mr. Harris said. I'll see you soon. I hung up and took a few deep breaths. Returning to the living room, I found the argument still going strong. Absolutely ridiculous that you can't help in this situation, Mum was saying to the officers. What are the police for, if not to resolve disputes? Criminal disputes, ma'am. Officer Chen said patiently. This is clearly a family matter about inheritance. We don't have any authority to force your daughter to share money legally left to her. Sarah noticed me first. Did you think about it, Emma? Are you ready to do the right thing? Everyone turned to look at me. My hands were trembling, but I kept my voice steady. I called Mr. Harris. He's on his way. Mom's face flushed red. You what? Why would you do that without consulting me first? Because Grandma told me to call him if there was ever any trouble with the inheritance, I said simply. There wouldn't be any trouble if you weren't being so stubborn, Sarah cried. Dad finally spoke up. Everyone, let's just calm down. If Mr. Harris is coming, we can sort this out properly. He knows the legal details better than any of us. Mom shot Dad an angry look, but didn't argue. The officers exchanged glances. We'll wait until the attorney arrives, the male officer said. Maybe he can clear things up for everyone. We sat in tense silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. Mom kept shooting me disappointed looks, while Sarah alternated between glaring at me and dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Dad just looked tired. I noticed Mom getting up a few times, wandering around the room restlessly. On her third circuit, she headed toward the stairs. Where are you going? I asked. Just to the bathroom, she said, not meeting my eyes. Something in her tone made me suspicious. I waited a few seconds, then quietly followed her. Instead of going to the bathroom, she went straight to my bedroom. I watched from the hallway as she started rifling through my desk drawers. What are you doing? I asked, making her jump. Looking for the inheritance paperwork, she said, not even pretending to be embarrassed at being caught. I know you must have copies. That's my private stuff, I protested, stepping into the room. You can't just search through it. I'm your mother, she said, as if that explained everything. If you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't mind me looking. I mind because you're invading my privacy, I said, my voice rising. And Mr. Harris has all the paperwork anyway. The doorbell rang downstairs, interrupting our argument. That must be him now, I said, relieved. Mom gave my desk one last frustrated look before brushing past me. This isn't over. When we got back downstairs, Dad was already letting Mr. Harris in. He looked different than the last time I'd seen him, at the will reading more serious, more formal, in his dark suit and red tie. He carried a leather briefcase that looked important and expensive. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Dad said, shaking his hand. "Of course," Mr. Harris replied, his eyes finding me immediately. "Emma, are you all right?" Before I could answer, Mom stepped forward. "Mr. Harris, this really wasn't necessary. We're having a family discussion about Emma sharing her inheritance with her sister who's in financial need." Mr. Harris raised an eyebrow. A family discussion that involved calling the police? Mom had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Sometimes outside perspective is helpful. Mr. Harris nodded to the officers. "I'm Richard Harris, attorney and executor for Margaret Williams' estate. I understand there's some confusion about the terms of her will." The male officer nodded. "Mrs. Williams seems to believe her younger daughter is withholding family assets." "I see," Mr. Harris said, setting his briefcase on the coffee table. "Perhaps I can clear this up for everyone. Would it be all right if we all sat down? What I have to share affects everyone in this room." Something in his tone made even Mom listen. We all found seats, the officer standing nearby, but clearly interested. Mr. Harris opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Before I begin, I want to clarify that Emma has done absolutely nothing wrong. The inheritance left to her by her grandmother is legally binding and has very specific conditions attached to it." "But surely there's room for family necessity," Mom interrupted. "My mother couldn't have foreseen Sarah's situation." Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses and looked at Mom directly. "Actually, Mrs. Williams, your mother foresaw this exact situation." A strange silence fell over the room. "What do you mean?" Dad asked. Mr. Harris pulled out a document from his folder. "Margaret Williams included a special clause in her will that I was instructed to reveal only in the event that Emma's inheritance was contested by family members." Sarah shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "I have that clause here," Mr. Harris continued, unfolding the paper. "And I also have something else that Margaret prepared." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small tablet. "Your mother recorded a video message to be played in exactly this circumstance. Would you like to see it?" Mom looked like she wanted to object, but Dad spoke first. "Yes, we would." Mr. Harris nodded and pressed play on the tablet. After a moment, Grandma's face appeared on the screen. She was sitting in her favorite armchair, the one with the floral pattern that used to be in her living room. My heart squeezed at seeing her again, looking just like she had before she got sick. "Hello," Grandma began, her voice as warm and clear as I remembered. "If you're watching this, it means there's been a disagreement about the money I left for Emma's education. I'm sorry it's come to this, but not surprised. Money has a way of bringing out truths that might otherwise stay hidden." Mom shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "I want to be very clear about my decisions," Grandma continued. "The trust fund I established for Emma is exclusively for her education. It cannot be accessed for any other purpose, and it cannot be divided or shared not by choice, and not by force. I've made certain of that legally." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes seeming to look right at us through the screen. "Jane, if you're there, I know you think I'm playing favorites. I'm not. I'm making a specific choice based on specific reasons. Sarah has received financial help from me several times during her life. I paid for her braces when you couldn't afford them. I covered the car repairs after her accident junior year. I even gave her $5,000 as a graduation present just 2 years ago." Sarah looked down at her hands, her cheeks flushing. "Each time," Grandma continued, "that money disappeared quickly, spent on things that weren't necessities. I love Sarah dearly, but I recognized a pattern. Emma, on the other hand, has saved every birthday check I've ever sent her. She works part-time and buys her own clothes. She plans for the future." I hadn't known Grandma had noticed all that. My decision isn't about loving one granddaughter more than the other. It's about honoring the different paths they've chosen. Sarah received her share of my financial support during my lifetime. Emma will receive hers through this educational trust. Grandma's expression softened slightly. "Sarah, honey, if you're watching this, I love you very much. But part of loving someone is not enabling harmful patterns. You have so many wonderful qualities and talents. I hope you'll find your way to use them." Sarah was crying now, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. And Jane, Grandma's voice grew firmer. I know you mean well, but you cannot change the terms of my will, simply because you disagree with them. The trust is ironclad. Any attempt to contest it will only result in legal fees that no one can afford. Mum's face had gone pale. Emma, Grandma said finally, her eyes crinkling with the smile I missed so much. Stand your ground like an oak tree, sweetheart. Your education matters. Your future matters. And know that I am so very proud of you. The video ended, leaving the room in complete silence. Mr. Harris gently set the tablet down. As you can see, Mrs. Williams was quite clear in her intentions. Additionally, he held up the legal document. The trust includes a contestation clause. If any family member attempts to legally challenge or coerce changes to the trust, their own inheritance, including the jewelry collection left to Sarah, would be forfeit and donated to charity. Mom's mouth opened and closed, without words coming out. The male officer cleared his throat. Well, I think it's pretty clear there's no police matter here. This is exactly as we said, a civil issue that's already been legally addressed by the deceased. Officer Chen nodded in agreement. We'll be going now. I'm sorry for the family disagreement, but there's nothing for us to do here. They both looked relieved to have an excuse to leave this uncomfortable situation. Dad showed them out while the rest of us sat in stunned silence. When Dad returned, Sarah suddenly stood up. This is so unfair, she cried. You all act like I'm some irresponsible child. I have real expenses, real problems. Sarah, Mr. Harris said gently, your grandmother left you her entire jewelry collection, valued at approximately $30,000. Have you considered selling some pieces to cover your expenses? Sarah flushed. That's different. The jewelry has sentimental value. And Emma's education doesn't? Mr. Harris asked quietly. Sarah didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house, the front door slamming behind her. Mom looked like she'd aged 10 years in the last hour. Mr. Harris, surely there's some compromise. There isn't, he said firmly, and I would strongly advise against pursuing this matter further. Margaret was very clear, and the legal documents are airtight. He turned to me. Emma, in light of today's events, I'd like to propose something. The trust allows for a legal guardian to be appointed to oversee your inheritance until you turn 18. Would you like me to serve in that capacity? I looked at Mom, who wouldn't meet my eyes, then at Dad, who looked defeated. The answer was clear. Yes, please. Mr. Harris nodded. I'll draw up the paperwork, and I think your grandmother would agree that after today, this is the best course of action. After Mr. Harris left, the house filled with a silence so heavy, it felt like a physical weight. Mom disappeared upstairs without a word. Dad sat beside me on the couch, looking exhausted. I'm sorry, Emma, he said finally. This whole thing, it got out of hand. Why didn't you stop it? I asked, the hurt clear in my voice. You knew what Mom and Sarah were doing wasn't right. Dad sighed. It's complicated. Your mother. She's always struggled with how her own mother treated her. She felt Margaret favored you, and it brought up old wounds. That doesn't make it okay to call the police on me, I said, or search my room. No, it doesn't, Dad agreed, running a hand through his hair. None of this was okay. I should have been stronger. We sat in silence for a moment. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, Dad admitted, but whatever it is, it won't be the same. He was right about that. 2 years later, I stood in front of my dorm room at State University, a box of belongings in my arms. My roommate seemed nice, a girl named Lily from Colorado, who wanted to study marine biology. Need help with that? A voice called from down the hall. It was Dad, carrying another box from the car. I've got it, I said, pushing the door open with my foot. We worked together to unload the car, arranging my things on my side of the small room. It felt good, setting up my new space, my new beginning. Your grandmother would be proud, Dad said as we finished. I know, I said, smiling. I feel her with me sometimes. Things with my family had never gone back to the way they were before that day. Mom and I had a cordial relationship now, but the closeness was gone. Sarah and I texted occasionally, mostly on birthdays and holidays. She had eventually sold some of Grandma's jewelry collection to pay off her debts and was working at a marketing firm in Chicago. Mr. Harris had been true to his word, becoming my financial guardian until my 18th birthday. He'd helped me apply for scholarships and navigate the college application process, stepping in where my parents had stepped back. "Ready for your first college class tomorrow?" Dad asked, sitting on my newly made bed. "Nervous but ready," I said, placing Grandma's photo on my desk, the one with us wearing the paper crowns. "You're going to do great," Dad said, standing up. "Your mother wanted me to tell you she's proud of you too, in her own way." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Some wounds were still healing. As Dad prepared to leave, he gave me a tight hug. "Call if you need anything." "And Emma?" "Yeah?" "You stood your ground like an oak tree," he said softly. "Your grandmother was right about you." After he drove away, I stood at my window watching the other freshmen and their families unloading cars and saying goodbyes. I felt a mixture of sadness and hope swirling inside me. So much had changed because of one inheritance, one phone call, one afternoon. I looked at Grandma's picture again, at her smiling face beneath the silly paper crown. "I made it," I whispered, "just like you wanted." I'd lost some things along the way. The easy closeness of family, the belief that blood always meant loyalty. But I'd gained other things too: strength I didn't know I had, the courage to stand up for what was right, and the wisdom to recognize when people showed you who they really were. As I arranged my textbooks on the shelf above my desk, I felt a strange sense of peace. Grandma had said the money was my runway. Now it was time to fly.